Hi, it's approaching September, which means it's approaching a new academic year, and there'll be a lot of new people arriving in Oxford. And I thought it would be rather nice to do a series of medium distance walks which show what lies within easy reach of some of the colleges and other starting points. And I'm not going to assume a lot of prior knowledge about Oxford when I do this. I'll point out interesting things as I go along. And today I'm in an entranceway that comes out of the north side of the university parks. I think most people who've used the parks before will know this. The track inside the parks is called, if I remember rightly, North Walk. And it comes out comes out at the entrance to Lady Margaret Hall, which at the moment appears to be blocked by a very large coach. Possibly for conferences, since the colleges make a lot of money by renting out their accommodation when the students aren't here. Traveller's choice. This is the entrance. And inside, obviously I can't get in because I'm not a member of LMH, but there's some not bad architecture inside and some pretty nice gardens which go down to one side of the Cherwell, the river. And this is one end of Fifield Road, and you can walk various paths in roughly that sort of direction and end up in Summertown, and you have the rather fanciful buildings of North Oxford between here and that, and also Wolfson College about halfway up on that side, and St Hugh's a little bit up there. People from St Hugh's and Wolfson feel free to join in just by getting onto the route somewhere. So let's assume I'm a faithful LMHite, first year I suppose, and I'm going to go into the university parks. There are always little art and charity displays happening in various parts of Oxford. Sometimes the art and the charity get mixed, as I think is the case here. Rainbow of Ribbons, University Parks. An abundant display of colourful ribbons celebrating the memory of loved ones. And there's a QR code and a web address. And there's tree cover along this side of the parks, and then that walk. And if I carry on left, I'll eventually come to a duck pond, and then I go round it and turn at a right angle roughly and end up beside the Charwell. And there are quite a lot of seats dotted around the parks, and plentiful acres of short and well-kept grass, well-kept lawn that you can also sit on. This is August Bank Holiday Monday. The past 2 days were disappointing, grey and intermittently chilly, but this is still and lovely and warm. And the reason, well, one reason that I started from here, I was going to do this series anyway, is that I've been sitting in the parks reading for the past few hours, so it was a natural starting point anyway. Wow. Now, I've never seen it so low. That's the duck pond, but it doesn't have a lot of ducks. Or water. The rushes seem okay though. Half expect to find a beached cradle with Moses in. Right, well, as I say, I have never seen the duck pond down to its bed before. Those are LMH grounds on the other side, and sadly we're not allowed to cross. Quite a lot of colleges have removed bridges over the Charwell. I think Magdalen is one of the main culprits, and I've been told that it used to be allowed for the public to cross from the parks into LMH grounds, but I only have that as a rumour. It definitely was, though, possible to cross into some of the other colleges' grounds, again notably Magdalen, and there's a rather nice blog post called "The Souls of the People of Oxford" by geography professor Danny Dorling. He writes about this. And one of the crossing points was behind a church in the St Clements district, which I will probably get to later. So that's the Charwell, or one branch of the Charwell, and shortly I'll see it from above, or more above. And I see there is some water up this end. I did wonder whether all the ducks would have concentrated in it, but they haven't. Now I'm looking diagonally outwards to a little bit further down up to the entrance of the parks near the science area and the University Museum beyond the trees. And this is not the parks. This track, by the way, goes all the way, well, it goes as far as Wolfson, and then there's a gate on the left into Wolfson over a bridge, and then it goes further to the Marston Ferry Road and the bridge over the Marston Ferry Road, and then from there you can walk to the Victoria Arms, and if you want to go even further you can continue walking once you've had your beer at the Victoria Arms and get onto the Northern Ring Road. However, you'll then have to go out of your way to cross the Northern Ring Road because it's almost completely devoid of crossing points or safe space on the verge to walk along until you find one. There are some nice footpaths on the other side, but you use them at your own risk. Anyway, this is much nearer, and it's a nice little walk to do, say, after lunch. It's a sort of intermediate space between the parks and some of the new Marston housing estates. And there's an assortment of footpaths through these fields, usually signalled with one of those signs, but sometimes with an older version. There's one footpath on the Marston Ferry Road that the sign probably hasn't been updated since the 70s, maybe. It's one of the old, I think it's cast iron, green painted ones, and it points to a track which is actually a bit of a disappointment because it just loops round on itself and comes back. It goes up to the edge of the Cherwell and then turns round, and the reason for that is that there used to be a ferry there, hence the name Marston Ferry Road. Before the Marston Ferry Bridge was built, the ferry was the only way of crossing the river there to get into Marston, and it was the obligation of the pub, the Victoria Arms, which I mentioned and which some people will know because they've punted to it. It was the obligation of that pub to keep the ferry running, and I think that finally stopped in 1975, the bridge having been built in 71. A lot of Oxford's history concerns the building of bridges because there's so much water around. So I still remember when a friend took me on my first walk along this path, and it soon became evident that it's quite deeply embedded in the Oxford subconscious. An awful lot of people know and use these tracks. This one is probably the more promising. I think it goes to more places, and if you go along and eventually turn right and go then roughly sort of straight on, you'll come out on Arlington Drive, and then a bit further on you'll come out at a school, St Nicholas, at the beginning of Cherwell Drive and opposite Old Marston Village, which has some lovely old houses, including a house where Cromwell stayed, and that's well worth looking around. And you can go down a driveway or follow the river to the Victoria Arms and have the aforesaid pint. This way, that way, if you go further on, you can get to sort of round the back of the John Radcliffe Hospital and the regions of Headington that connects to. And if you go this way, you join up with the southern bits of the New Marston estate. And then, well, I'm going to go on to St Clements after that and just go round.
Let's go to the right, mate. Actually, if we go left.
wondered if there's some sort of rave going on there, but if there is, I think it's a pretty small scale one. Call it a rav rather than a rave. And then now this path gives into several southern roads of the new Marston estate, and the two most southern go straight up to Marston Road. In the opposite direction to the bike. And at this point, if you don't want to go any further, you can walk back into the parks by going along the university cycle path. There. To Headington, there are paths on the other side of the Marston Road that will do that. On the left, you can get to it by going there and turning right, or by going up there and turning left until you see a church. There is Jack Straw's Lane, which has quite a lot of posh houses in it, and goes up to Staunton Road at the top. And then a little bit further in this direction, there's Harberton Mead, which winds round amongst trees and is full of really pretty expensive gated mansions, as one person called them. I once found a whole big box full of dried foods that the owner didn't want to take with them when they moved. Most notably sachets of merchant gourmet chestnut puree, but sadly no such luck this time. And as I said, there are two of these roads going up to Marston Road. This is the southernmost. And one organisation that some viewers may want to visit is this. Branch of the Russian Orthodox Church, Church of St. Nicholas the Wonder Worker. Services in Russian and, I believe, English. That's a handy grocer. There aren't many such around here, so it's useful to know. And then you can continue up that street, and if you turn right at the top, there are some garages, and you can get through behind the garages and into a bit of a wood, and then onto a path beside whatever Brookes University happen to be building there now, which is probably renovations to a nursery, unless they've finished it. And then from there you can get to Cuckoo Lane, which is an ancient footpath, probably over 1,000 years old, that goes through into Headington. I used to do that quite a bit, but I find the experience has been spoilt by all the Brooks buildings. So if I want to do so now, I generally do what I mentioned earlier, which is to go up Harberton Mead Road there, or Jack Straw's Lane, and accept that it'll take a little bit longer. The houses there are more interesting to look at. Or I turn in that direction and go down to the path alongside the left of Headington Hill Park, the back of Headington Hill Park, which goes up, well, it also goes past some horrible new Brooks University buildings, but it does eventually join Cuckoo Lane, and then you can do as before. I've got a number of videos with Cuckoo Lane in the title, and if you search my channel for those, you can see what it looks like. I know it seems stupid to say I'm walking back into Oxford, because of course I'm in Oxford, but the core of Oxford really does feel that small, and there is a sense in which I'm now out of it. That one, John Garn Way, should also take you to Cuckoo Lane. I think there you definitely do have to go through the Brooks nursery. It used to be an open road, and I haven't tried it recently, just again because of the building and the nasty architecture. I'm pretty sure these are Brooks University. They're fairly recent, within the past few years, and I do think they're too tall for the width of the road, overpowering. And now we have the University Islamic Studies Centre, which is almost certainly something you don't expect to see in this part of Oxford, or indeed any other sort of fusion of college quadrangle architecture with Islamic. And that, if they follow the same pattern as last year, normally the grounds are not open unless you're studying there, so you can't see inside. But last year they opened the grounds for Oxford Open Doors, which is a weekend of opening up that allows you to see college gardens and churches and other places that are normally locked. Last year that was round about the 12th of September, and it'll probably be the same this year. And if they follow the same pattern, the Islamic Studies Centre will be one of the places that opens up. So book that. It's interesting to see inside. That path goes up the north side of Headington Hill Park, and it's sometimes called Cuckoo Lane West, although I think strictly speaking that's inaccurate. If you walk right up the length of the park, up the path, and then past a bit of Brookes University territory, you'll come to the junction of the proper Cuckoo Lane and a lane that comes down from the north called Pullens Lane. And then you can walk along the proper Cuckoo Lane to Headington. And you'll be coming off this so-called Cuckoo Lane West, which probably doesn't deserve the name, but I suspect it's now stuck with it. And the parks themselves, Headington Hill Park is really nice and relaxing. It's got a lot of exotic trees, lots of things in flower, and it's worth exploring before the weather gets too bad to do so in comfort. Now I'm still walking down Marston Road, and I'll soon join the road that goes up Headington Hill on the left and onto the High Street on the right. this is St Clement's Church, and like the Islamic Studies Centre, that was open on the last Oxford Open Doors, and I hope it will be again, because this has been around for a lot longer than Islamic Studies, and there's quite a bit of history associated with it, which you'll find out about if you pick up the leaflets in the church, and that's very interesting. The grounds always make me nostalgic in a very hard to define way. I think they're very similar in style, maybe in the fencing, to those of a big estate that I grew up near when I was a kid. I hasten to add that we didn't own the estate or have any connection with it, if only. Now I'm going to come back up the High Street and I'll cross Magdalen Bridge and the Angel Greyhound Meadow. And if you look down from the bridge parapet to the right-hand back side of the Angel and Greyhound, you won't see anything other than more shrubbery and stuff, but it used to be possible, allegedly, to cross from that onto somewhere down at the bottom there, and thereby cut out quite a lot of having to circumnavigate bits of St Clement's. And I think I've read that the way was open until about 1975, when Magdalen College closed it, and I said that I'd mention that. It's one of the examples of colleges acting heavy-handedly that Denny Dorling wrote about in his The Souls of the People of Oxford blog post. And one thing he says is that it was only possible for the colleges to do this without much protest, because by that time, by the mid-70s, most people had cars, so they didn't rely on foot, and they didn't rely on plentiful footpaths. Had the college taken such action in, say, 1900, it might have been so unpopular that it wouldn't get away with it. Well, I had to cut here because of an equipment problem, and it's now actually the following day, Tuesday. There was a fair there, and you can see the remnants of it. They haven't cleared everything away yet. I'm still on the edge of St Clement's in this direction and Headington Hill there, and if you walk up there and just keep going, you get to Headington. And for people who don't know, one distinctive feature of Headington is a giant shark sticking out of one of the house roofs just off the main street, and another is an astonishingly large number of charity shops, and both are worth visiting for rather different reasons. So now I'm walking back into Oxford through St Clement's. And St Clements has quite a lot of shops and restaurants, and they're mainly independents. Up to about a week ago, there was a Sainsbury's, and walking past it today, I spoke to a demolition man who was evidently working on the building that housed it. And that building, Wainfleet building I think it was called, is or was a Magdalen College accommodation block which is being demolished. And as a lot with the university, universities, Brooks as well, it seems a waste to knock down an entire building and then put up something new rather than trying to refurbish what's already there. I don't quite know how the university reconcile that with the environmental praise they give themselves on their websites. There are various streets and passages off to the left that go on to Cowley Road, which is the next one along. I mentioned the charity shops in Headington. This is the one and only charity shop in St Clements, Aged Concern. And now I'm at the bottom of the high street. So this is the Sainsbury's that has closed. And this is the building as a whole. That and that.
Reservation list, yeah?
How you doing, brother? That's it, man. Not me, yeah.
And the demolition worker told me that all of this is going, and that the demolition had been planned for some time, and that Sainsbury's were probably informed about a year ago that they'd have to move out, although I don't recall them telling their customers. And it does strike me as odd that Magdalen would be very careful about demolishing something 2, 3, 4, 5 or 600 years older, but they have no compunction at all against demolishing a building that was built in the 60s or 70s rather than trying to rework it. So environmental loss, there you are. Magdalen College, thank you. And that's a view from the side. This is the Angel and Greyhound meadow that I mentioned that Magdalen blocked a pathway out of. And you can't see it because it's round the curve of the outer edge. But if you follow that curve back beyond the trees, then where it hits the river at its back, there used apparently to be a crossing that went all the way to the back of St Clement's Church, and that no longer does. I don't know what the bridge across that stream was like, but maybe it was like that there, which still crosses a branch of the Charwell inside Magdalen's grounds. And maybe one morning the head of the college just ordered a few tons of TNT and thought, right, let's get rid of a bridge. In some colleges you wouldn't bother with the TNT, you just invite the rugby team to have a go. And this is an interesting place, historically perhaps, because I was told at a party last week that it was Oxford's first, or was and is Oxford's first souvenir shop. What they sell now is ice creams, goes on punts, and, as they say here, souvenirs. And you queue for the punts down there. I can see a paddle boat as well. There. No, I'm walking along another edge of Magdalen through there.
Did you watch that?
This is one of the streets that the one-way system makes you use if you want to come from where I've just come to North Oxford or to go in the other direction, so it's often full of traffic.
prowadzi właśnie z całą rodziną kopalni. On jest, czekaj, uwaga. On jest Sudańczykiem Czechem. Tak? Sudańczykiem Czechem. Dużo normalnie później przez to, że był w Sudanie.
And this street, Holywell Street, is blessedly free of traffic. And this is a historic house. This is number 99 Holywell Street. And it's one of the several houses that Tolkien lived in. And if I remember rightly, it's the last house that he lived in around the centre of Oxford before he moved out to 76 Sandfield Road. I think, I haven't got my notes with me, so I could be wrong about this. I think he moved to this house sometime in the 50s and stayed in, left this house sometime in the 50s and then moved to Sandfield Road, and then very definitely he left Sandfield Road in 1968, and popular accounts all say that he moved out to escape his fans. He left Oxford altogether because he kept getting phone calls and even personal visits. Americans particularly seem to have been very keen on The Hobbit, seeing something in the reassuringly home counties nature of the countryside that perhaps they lack in their own countryside. And Hobbit themes, Lord of the Ring themes, were used in some pop songs as well, which didn't help. So anyway, Tolkien wanted to escape that, and he moved out of Oxford and then came back finally for a final few years to lodgings in Merton College in Merton Street, in or near Merton Street. So that's 99 Holywell Street, one of Tolkien's houses. That's New College. Oh, and by the way, I'll add that not long ago I did a video where I visited all the places that Tolkien lived while he was in Oxford, starting at Exeter College, where he was an undergraduate, and continuing through to lodgings or flats in St John Street and Pusey Street. And then when he came back to Oxford after a spell in Leeds University, houses in Northmoor Road and a house in Manor Road, and the house that I've just shown you, and then the Sandfield Road house, and then the Merton Street lodgings. So I walk round from Exeter and visit all the others. Now, I started at Lady Margaret Hall. I'm not going to go all the way back there, but anybody who wants to, you just walk to the end of this road, turn right, and then there's a back entrance into the university parks, and you just follow that round the Charwell and eventually bend left, and you'll come to the duck pond, the currently very, very, very dry duck pond, and then you walk in the opposite direction round that to where I did coming, and you'll end up at the exit from North Walk that takes you to LMH. I'll just look at one or two things in the centre. Holywell music rooms. This is the Oxford Print Centre, and if you ever find yourself doing a dissertation or a thesis, you may well have it printed or bound here, because this is the main place. This so-called tuck shop sells sweets, sandwiches and such like. And now I'm at the junction of Holywell Street, Parks Road and Broad Street. Standing outside one pub, the King's Arms. Now looking down into Cat Street. And if I go round the corner, I can see the Bridge of Sighs. And just beyond it is Sir Edmond Halley's house, he who named the comet, or he after whom the comet is named. And there's another pub there called the Turf Tavern. Comet or shall I go into the Turf Tavern? I'll look at the Comet. So that is Sir Edmond Halley's house, and I'm going to end here. This was LMH through the parks, along the little track to New Marston, and then round to St Clements, and then back up Longwall Street, Holywell Street, and here. See you next time.